What's up, Ringside Collectibles and WrestlingFigures.com fans? We're back for the yearly Q&A San Diego Comic-Con 2021 with the Mattel WWE team. I have Steve Ozer and I have Bill Miekina. Guys, thanks for joining us for a Q&A, as you always do. We like to put you, under the hard spotlight a little bit, but we always have a great time, and you always answer our questions really well. So thanks for joining us here, and hope you're ready for it.
Thanks for having us again.
Yeah, our pleasure. We love these.
Of course. So first things first, what was your favorite figure shown at Comic-Con this year?
I think my favorite thing we showed today was Ultimate Kane, just because I figured, how are we going to top what we've previously done with Kane figures? And I think we have, which is kind of remarkable.
I also love the Ultimate Edition Kane. I think that cape just set it over the top of my new favorite Kane figure. And a second favorite is that Elite Series SummerSlam version of Hulk Hogan from the Shawn Michaels match. Like I said before, I was at that event. Huge Hulkamaniac growing up. So very cool that we're getting that long-awaited figure into the line.
Excellent. That's awesome. I'm going to go with the ringside exclusive Tommaso Ciampa, and I'll also add one more and say the Elite Bobby Lashley looks awesome, and I can't wait to see both of those. And MVP. All right, I'll pick three.
All of them.
Yeah, they're all favorites. So any plans for more trophy accessories like the Dusty Rhodes Tag Classic, a classic Edge with a King of the Ring trophy, something like that? It's been a while since maybe we've seen a trophy accessory. Any thoughts?
Yeah, it's something we always keep in mind when we're figuring out accessories for figures. A lot of times it's just determined as like, who's in the lineup and what's the most relevant to include at that time. And also sometimes, tooling. So
we've seen a lot of various Elite 2-packs released. So we saw China and Triple H. People have their hands on. We have the Rock and Sock Connection I have back here. That's going to be on Ringside Collectibles, available really soon. What do you think about the Elite 2-packs at this point? Is this something that's kind of here to stay? And if so, could we see Hogan and Warrior?
Hogan and Warrior would be a great Elite 2-pack. We are going to slow down with Elite 2-packs for a bit. So Rock and Mankind are going to be the last that you see just for a little while. But they are going to come back strong in a little while. So hang tight. More Elite 2-packs to come, and some exciting additions to your collection are on the way for sure.
I'm all for it. Patience always pays off here. So we saw some ring announcements today. I did want to make sure that we ask if we'll ever see like a modern Elite scale ring come back. So the last we saw, I think, were the SmackDown and Raw Elite scale rings. Any chance that we'll see anything like that again with possibly the new setups that we've seen?
I think it's a lot more likely if this hits its funding goal, because if this fits its funding goal, all the new parts will be tooled. And those will be available for use on future SKUs, which of course would include a modern version of the ring. So shameless plug for our new Ultimate Edition New Generation Arena.
Yeah, I think, just to reinforce this, like if this is successful, it opens up the doors for so much more. So, you're specifically asking about rings. It becomes very, very likely should this be successful.
Hey, really honest answer from you guys, and you heard it with Ringside Collectibles. If we see this work out well, then we could see other more modern rings, and who knows what else in the future. I think of Hell in a Cell off the top of my head. I think of Elimination Chamber. I think of War Games, something like that. The possibilities are just endless if this works out well, it sounds like.
Yeah, we want to explore, discuss, see if we can do just about anything, right? So this is a great litmus test to see what the appetite is for things like this. And I think there is an appetite there, and the reception has been good. So let's make this happen.
Good.
The only limitation is the amount of space on your floors in your.
Well, that just means move to a bigger location. That's all.
Problem solved.
Or bring it all to school and play together. So someone here is asking when we'll see another Shawn Michaels, and they get a little more specific, asking, is it possible to see like an elite of Shawn Michaels in WrestleMania 25 attire? So if my memory serves correct, we saw that in the Defining Moments lineup in Days of Yore. But that I'd like to, we'll ask that question for them specifically, but just to broaden it a little bit, with new technology, new tooling, all the new exciting things that you have available kind of at your fingertips to make some of these figures, is it possible to kind of redo some previously released figures and attires with either new TrueFX tech or any of your updated tooling?
Absolutely. That's something that's going to be part of the line going forward, just because there are just such newer techniques available. And also some of the stuff, if it was released 10 years ago, a lot of our collectors just don't have very good access to it. So there could be a definitive version of a character, but it's, from 2010, the last time we did that. So we want to make sure that people that have joined, the collecting communities since then have access to those versions of the characters as well.
Yeah, and talking about Shawn specifically, you mentioned WrestleMania 25. I think Shawn is somebody we should do our very best to get every WrestleMania iteration of out there, at the very least, plus all his other looks on top of it. But, I think we can say that it is a goal of ours to try to accomplish as many WrestleMania looks as possible at the very least.
Excellent. So NXT UK, obviously this is kind of building itself out as its own brand. Could we see additional NXT UK talents like Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster?
It's possible, right? As that brand, gains more traction and more popularity, and as talent become available to us, we would totally explore adding more and more to the line.
So we saw some retro reveals on the panel earlier today, and I feel like there's a lot to talk about here, but I'll make sure that we're answering folks' questions. We did see what looks like a combination of legends and current talent within the retro line. Can you share any more information on this, like who might be in upcoming lines? And with the return of retro figures, is it possible to see a new retro ring?
So we are going to focus on legendary talent only at first, out of the gate. It doesn't mean you may not see modern talent at some point, but at least, as we're getting this line going again, we're going to focus on what we feel, you guys, the collectors, have been asking for, and that is legendary talent to fill out your existing collections, and they'll be meaningful executions. If we revisit a particular talent, like, Rowdy Piper, it's going to be meaningful. Like now he has a removable kilt and he can have ring gear. So we're trying to give you guys exactly what you're asking for. We're going to bundle them together, 4 individually carded retro figures together in one bundle, coming in a really cool shipper with throwback graphics on it. And if you guys support, who knows what can happen. I would love to see a redecoed version of a ring come out. There's plenty of classic eras to choose from to redeco that ring as Attitude Era, perhaps. Maybe a revisit to the yellow ring. So sky's the limit with support from you guys.
Could we potentially see retros as a full-fledged line again?
Who knows, right? You can't say at this point. We have to see how this does, but I mean, if there's clear demand there, we have to explore that. So, let's see what happens here. I have high hopes. Bill and I have worked on this for a long time to bring it back. We put a lot of hours in, a lot of planning, on the business side of things, a lot of creative planning. So we on our side want this to be executed as good as possible to give it as much chance for success as we possibly can.
I love it. I love the optimism. So Bill, one question for you. Which figure or accessory has been the most challenging for you to work on this year?
Oh, gosh. Man, that's a good question.
They were all really easy.
No, oh gosh, you know what?
Just kidding.
Honestly, I talked about it before. Getting the earrings correct for the Bianca Belair was a challenge, just because it was a new, it was a new way of thinking, and then a lot of making sure that that it also passed safety regulations. Because a lot of times, what they want to do is either have them glued directly to the head so they're not removable, but when I tell them no, they have to be movable. Figuring out the correct plastic to use to make sure that they're child safe, making sure that the plug is easy enough to take in and out of the ear, but also has enough friction so that when you move the head back and forth just through casual play, they don't just go flying off of the head. Like, there was a lot of just little adjustments that were needed to get those to where, when I finally got the first injection sample of that a few weeks ago and it was perfect, I was like, man, this was so much work to get to this point, but it's such a satisfying payoff that this is exactly what I envisioned it as.
Excellent. I can't wait for people to get their hands on that one.
I mean, I hope so too.
Any chance at some legendary playsets, perhaps, like Brutus Beefcake's Barbershop, Undertaker's Parlor, Jake's Snake Pit? Any chance at any additional playsets, even maybe from a modern era as well?
Well, I mean, Neon Entrance possibly coming our way.
Okay.
So as I mentioned before, like, a whole new world of possibilities is in front of us now. If this is successful and it moves forward, like, who knows what we can do? Classic play sets, modern play sets. We want to explore everything. So, make it happen, guys. I'm going to buy into it myself personally, to make sure there's even one more and just increase the chances of it working. So, let's do it. Let's do it together. I want all those things you just mentioned. I'm sure Bill wants a lot of them as well.
Yeah, I think with the crowdfunding, if the first foray into crowdfunding is successful, like, I think a lot of the things that were sort of maybe on the back burner before, maybe they could rise, bubble to the top of, like, hey, maybe now if enough people supported this, they'll probably buy into this as well. And a lot of what you mentioned before sort of fall into that area. Excellent.
How do you guys decide between choosing between books for different eras? So, for example, some of our favorite talents have been in the golden era, the attitude era, the modern era, the reality era, the ruthless aggression era. What makes you gravitate towards one or the other?
Well, I think a couple things, and Bill, please chime into this as well. I mean, one is just creating an appealing lineup, right? You want, as I mentioned in the last video, you want a lineup that's going to have some appeal to different members of the collector community. And then you want to talk about specific appealing looks. And this is where, maybe you can chime in, Bill, of decision-making on picking a particular look if maybe someone appears in multiple eras.
Yeah, it's especially when we're now doing the pay-per-view waves, which tends to lend itself to choosing talent from, more, going farther back. It's trying to figure out, like, what was memorable as a match, what was memorable as a TV moment, what's sort of what's gonna, like, get people excited about having that particular look. And then also making sure that it fits in the lineup in terms of, all the other factors that we talk about, like in terms of the variety and hitting our, the cost targets, making sure everything sort of falls into place. And, sometimes, a character from 2020 works better than, the same version of that character from 2012, and sometimes vice versa.
You brought up a good point.
Just
you brought up a good point about tooling and deco, right? Like cost is a factor, and IP, right? Outside IP, like, all those things are things to consider that might bump somebody out of a particular wave. Like when someone says, "Oh, why didn't you do this version here? It makes sense here." Well, we might think so too, but one of those factors might have to push that out for execution at a later date.
Yeah, and I also think, like, our Decade of Domination set that came out about 2 years ago now is a good example of this. Like, we picked talent that was, like, spanned, through the 10 years that we had the lineup, but we kind of focused on, looks before then, because it was stuff that we already, during the course of the 10 years, we probably already touched on, the looks that they had through the years. But there was some stuff earlier that we hadn't had a chance to go back and recreate, and it was a chance to revisit, those looks.
Excellent. So with the kind of surge in popularity for NXT, is there any chance of a revival of the NXT Elite line?
I don't think there's anything currently in the pipeline for a full revival of the line. An increased presence, yeah, for sure. I think you're going to see more NXT, figures in elites and basics and as exclusives. But I don't foresee in the immediate future a dedicated NXT line.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, we always want to have fresh talent in the lineup, and 9 times out of 10 they first show up on WWE programming at NXT. So like NXT will always have a pretty important part in our lineups.
Excellent. Bill, we know you're a big Asuka fan. This person's asking, why have we not seen her included with an entrance coat yet?
Because that's a very expensive accessory to reproduce.
This is an answer I knew you would be giving.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I would want it as much as the next person, but it just hasn't worked out. I mean, I want it too, but just figuring out where to do it.
Would you say it's a complete impossibility, or is there a chance, anything's possible in the future?
Nothing's a complete impossibility. There's maybe like a few things, but that's not one of them.
She almost happened, remember? Announced and everything, and it didn't work out, unfortunately, at the time.
Yeah.
So I think we've shown we kind of don't give up. This team doesn't give up on good ideas or fan demanded ideas or executions, and we're gonna do our best to find a way.
If you could make any new championship title, what would it be, and who would you pack it with? Accessory.
I want the enlarged Andre the Giant title that was never really used, but they had made for him. That would be a cool, fun, wacky inclusion into the line.
I want the belt title that Hogan won when he beat the Iron Sheik. I'd like to figure out a way to get that in the line.
Both interesting quality choices. How is it determined who gets a basic or an elite figure when you are figuring out lineups?
That's tough. It's a lot.
It's a mixture of things. Yeah. I mean, some are more obvious than others. Like if you have a character like a Dominic Mysterio who wears a costume that's very high deco with a lot of, color, it probably makes a lot more sense to debut them in an elite lineup where you can execute it. And not have to sort of meet the, some of the more restrictive guidelines of the basic figures. And then there's others where the basic version is you can execute at the basic version and be, as 100% accurate. So in those instances, it makes the most sense to debut them in basic.
Sure. So it really depends on the right fit in that case.
But that's a very oversimplification of it as well.
It's a long process, and I sit down with I manage both lines, elites and basics. So I sit down with Bill for the elite lineups and with John, our basic designer, for those lineups, and I have to make sure that there's not a lot of crossover at the same time, and making sure both lines get first time in the line figures and there's excitement across the board. And keeping Mattel and retailer strategy intact with those as well, knowing that basics is a little more kid focused or modern WWE fan focused. So there's so much licensor input as well, right? Licensor might just straight up say, put this person here in this wave, and that's it. So it is a long, difficult process, but hopefully you guys for the most part like the results.
Excellent. So the Reckon lineup, we got the Slam Cycle in that line and a few other Slam vehicles. If that line continues, and let me know if maybe not, but could we possibly see a limo, Eddie's Lowrider? Forklifts obviously have been really famous in wrestling when it comes to vehicles. Could there be more vehicles down the line if the Reckon line moves forward?
Thoughts on this, Bill?
As a company, Mattel likes making products that people buy, and people have been buying a lot of the wrecking vehicles. So I think it's safe to say if people keep buying these, we will still keep making them.
Okay.
I think it's cool that the WWE line has kind of been like the action figure home of 6-inch/7-inch scale vehicles. And there's an appeal to them if you collect WWE or superhero figures or anything. So I think that's another, key to their success is the broad appeal of them. So, they're doing well, and we're all hoping we keep this going for a long time.
Very cool. Very cool. Glad to hear. Have you guys ever considered alternative additional parts? So, obviously we're getting into this place where removable, interchangeable hands is like kind of a mainstay, at least in the Elite lineup. Could it ever be possible for tooling that creates like interchangeable boot or even pose pieces like folded arms, things that are fit folks like more iconic looks or poses?
Interchangeable boots would be tough because when you try to when you pose it, it's very easy to like pull the boots off, and in play it's very frustrating because sometimes I get first factory samples where the knees are tight, and then when you try to move them, the shoe starts to come loose, and it's not the most satisfying play, if I'm being honest. And so that's an instance like interchangeable boots. And then also there's like, you start messing with like the size of the figures and the scale. So I personally, it's not something that I'm in favor of as an idea. I like the hands. I think we've added a lot of value to the figures with it just by making the hands interchangeable. I mean, as you can see from the Hulk Hogan posing that Steve did in the earlier video, just how much more you can get out of a figure just by having those extra sets of hands. So I think in one of the ways we would add more posability is by actually, improving our articulation across the line, which I think we've done, adding butterflies to ultimates, adding double jointed elbows to elites. I think that's where we would prefer to emphasize improving the posability of the figures as opposed to creating, dedicated static posed arms in a certain position.
Great answer. Guys, I know we're running up on time. If it's okay, I'll ask just a few more. And then Steve, when you're ready, I've got the annual list of names for you to run down and see if we can get some hints in there. So one question that we were seeing a lot, there's some debate about basic style figures at this point. Some people seem to prefer the older style arm molds on these figures. They've been updated and changed over the years. Will or could these older style arm molds ever be used again?
Not in mainline basics or 2-packs, but I think as you've seen in the WrestleMania celebration, the WrestleMania ring cart figures, that we can revisit them from time to time. So I think, for special occasions, we can utilize them, but largely to stick at that $9.99 retail price point, we probably won't be seeing them in mainline basics and 2-packs.
Fair enough. Many lines have come and gone. We've seen defining moments. We've seen we've seen the Legends line and so on. Ultimate Edition is really popular right now. Obviously, we have some new reveals, so it's not going to go away anytime soon. But is there an end in sight for this line also, or does the popularity mean that this one is now going to be like here to stay? Is this like kind of a would you call this a pillar line?
Anything could happen, right? If popularity drops off a cliff, but I mean, there's no end in sight right now. I'll tell you that. Excellent.
Good to know. Are you planning anything special for Elite Series 100?
Yes.
We'll take that as a hard yes, Steve. I want to leave everybody guessing on that one. I don't even need any hints here. I'm going to be nice about it. So one last question before we move on to the list of names. Some folks have had a few challenges in getting some of the exclusive elites to a retailer like Target or Walmart. Legends obviously were only available at Target for a while online. Have you heard this feedback? And after hearing this feedback about some of the difficulties folks are having in ordering, do you see the possibility of getting these figures in the future becoming easier?
Yes, definitely. And we're collectors ourselves. Let's say that right up front. You know, Bill and myself are both hardcore collectors of multiple lines, including WWE. And I'm out there multiple times a week hunting figures. So I see the retail landscape, and I'm not just going to one store. I'm going to multiple stores, and I'm online, and I follow tons of accounts. So I have a good lay of the land of what's happening. But if you look back at our history over the last few years, I think you will see that there has been gradual progress made in making things easier and more accomplishable in completing your collections. You know, collector's editions were very tough at the beginning, and we started double weighting appropriate characters. Ringside was able to carry a few of them, and that eventually became easier and easier to find, through various outlets or traditionally through the intended exclusive retailer. For exclusive lines, you're seeing pre-orders almost across the board. There's some rare exceptions where we're unable to execute a pre-order for various reasons, but we're doing pre-orders, and those numbers, as we gauge consumer interest and success of those, we've been upping the numbers of available units and pre-orders. So we're definitely taking steps. We're working closely with the retailers to make these things as easy as possible to get. We're stressing the importance with our, international retail partners of why these lines are so important to collectors, and trying to get, as many retailers to buy in internationally as possible. So yes, taking all that feedback in, and, like I said, take a look back at the progress over the last several years. And I think we are in a much better place today than we were, 3, 4, 5 years ago. And it's just going to continue to get better.
Good. Great to hear it. Thank you, Steve. So we've reached kind of our final question here, which is the list of names. I still think after all these years, we've never really found a way to definitively give like yeses or nos, but I'm just going to fire these at you, and you give me whatever kind of hint or response you want to. Does that sound good?
Sure. Go for it.
Sure.
So Luna Vachon.
I wish.
Ivory.
I wish.
Big Daddy V.
You're seeing a theme here. I'll pause you. Everyone that you want, we want, right?
Okay.
If we made Chief J Strongbow, we made the Goon, right? We're making everyone we can possibly make. Like, we will continue to ask WWE to sign legendary talent. There are some instances where talent are off the table. You guys can do a little Googling research and find out why they're off the table. It's all out there, right? But for the most part, like, if they're accomplishable, we're going to try to make it happen for you guys. So, we can continue with the list, but just know that, we're trying, we're making things happen. We got China, we got Mr. T, we can go down the list of Greg Valentine. We're making things happen. We'll continue to make them happen. And I'll interact with you all in the forums and get your feedback and everything. But just know we want everything that you guys want.
How about this? So that's a great answer, but here's what I'll do. I'll run down the whole list, and if you don't even have to say who it is, but if you say there's at least one person on this list that's possibility in the future, maybe we can end it there. How's that sound?
Let's do it.
All right. Butch Reed, Stan Hansen, Hercules, A-Train, Gangrel, Juventud Guerrera, Steve Blackman, Tamina, Hardcore and Crash Holly. I may or may not have added that one myself. Molly Holly, La Parka, Bad Bunny, Jeff Jarrett, Victoria, Giant Gonzalez, The Mountie, Bad News Brown, Coco Beware, Rosie, Al Snow with Head, Tony Storm, Dom Mysterio, who we've seen, Aaliyah, Timothy Thatcher, a new Dolph Ziggler, and Terry Gordy.
I have a huge announcement. Dominic Mysterio's first time Elite is on the way.
Excellent.
And
there
already is a Tony Storm figure. So
yeah, there's multiple names on that list. There's multiple names on that list that are probably going to happen.
You hear that? Do your research before you come to us asking these questions. All right, Steve, Bill, It's been great again this year. Love to talk with you guys. Love the Q&A session. We always have a lot of fun, and I want to say thank you. And we really appreciate not only you taking the time to do this with us, but the really like transparent communication that you have not only with us, but the folks that we put these videos together for. So thank you so much for joining us. And I'm not only looking forward to Comic-Con next year, looking forward to everything that we have in between, and hopefully we'll see each other, if not sooner, at next year's Comic-Con.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks so much. We'll chat on online and on the forums.